Hello, I'm Dr. Tom, and I'd like to welcome you to another Friday update. And what a spectacular week we've had inside the world of gin. Comments continue to come in from our conference that was recently held in Paris. People are excited on different continents about the information that we share throughout this club. I'd also like to remind you of what we had in the Midwest, our Midwest retreat with Josh Novy and David Kruger. Of course, what a spectacular event, and we'll show some pictures of that for you. There was hiking, there was time spent in nature, time reconnecting with source, time spent dream building, about going from in here and in your head and in your energy field to expanding those dreams and sharing those dreams and leveraging those dreams, if you will, so that their accomplishments will occur. This is an exciting time to be inside the world of gin. I will tell you that be sure and look for the spring of 2021 version of that Midwest retreat, which will be upcoming, and we so look forward to 2021 because it will be different than 2020. We're excited about the future. We're excited about the opportunities that are in front of us. We're excited about the people who are completing their level 5 testing. You see, level 5 is kind of a flashpoint in this club where you build and build and build, and then you actually have a test. It's an extremely comprehensive test. It's a test about knowledge. It's not a tricky test. It's about what have you learned? How much gin is in you? And so from a leadership standpoint, people understand once you get to level 5 and you pass that level 5 test, you're in. It's a new level, just not as a numerical level, but it's a new level of consciousness, if you will. It's a new level of energy inside this club. And of course, that is the journey to get you to be able to attend a level 6 and to be able to do level 7A and level 7B and ultimately to be able to receive level 8 for free. Those are the gifts that we have for you, for your accomplishments inside this club. And those events, the level 6 and the level 7 aspects, which happen in live events, it's a training prior to our large majors, and it is a time where lives change. It is a time where you get in the energy and you bask and bathe in the glory of that energy, that feeling. It's something that's difficult to describe, yet it's felt by everyone that's there. And of course, our next major event will be in February of 21. It will be in Las Vegas at the Mirage. 2 ways to register. Remember, you must register not only with the hotel, but with gin itself. And you can get a link to the hotel to register to get the room rates and all that stuff from the website. It's very easy to do. Just make sure that you register both places. And thank you to those of you who took that advice a couple of weeks ago when I gave it out. And we did see a registration bump in both. You see, some people are registered with the hotel, some are registered with us, and we cross-reference them to make sure that everyone gets where they need to be. And this week, I have a conversation that I'd like to have with you about a very common challenge that is shared throughout the world. As a matter of fact, when we talk about what holds people back from accomplishing what they desire and what they dream, and that dream building that I referenced earlier, and it comes down to fear, a fear of something, and it's typically a version of a fear of not being enough. So I want to kind of dial that back today and talk about fear itself, because fear is very prevalent in the world right now. And I was reminded about a Franklin D. Roosevelt, a former president here in the United States, a quote that he had that talks about the only thing, I believe the quote was, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Now think about that for just a moment. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, because so often what we fear doesn't turn out that way. And if we turn our attention away from fear and move more into faith, move more into the positive aspect of what we do, to move more into seeing it as if, to picturing it as if, to being what we look for, not trying to stay away from what we're afraid of. Now, part of that, you see, it's a very fine line here, because part of knowing what you do want, you may have had to spend some time identifying what you don't want in order to know what you do want. Some people can go straight into what they do want. The point is fear. Fear at this time is there's so much of it in the surrounding area, no matter where you are. I mean, if you turn on any news channel, they're showing you about riots, they're showing you about fear, they're showing you about police, they're showing you about things that are designed to do just that, to create the image of fear. In this particular time, right now, there's a fear there's a U.S. election going to happen here in the United States next week. People are in fear of which way that will go. How will that impact me? They're afraid of things, yet those things have not occurred yet, but they're already in fear. They're preparing in a fearful state for the future. I invite you to go into faith. I invite you, when you have the fears, and some of those common fears are the fear of getting sick, the fear of getting COVID, the fear of death, the fear of loss, the fear of losing a family member, the fear of not being able to celebrate with your family for Halloween or for Thanksgiving or for Christmas or for your birthday or for weddings or for funerals, the fear of not being able to accumulate in groups, the fear of not being able to go to church, the fear of whether you should wear a mask or not wear a mask. The fear of I made a couple of notes on those. The fears that people have about going to social distancing. Is it really 6 feet? Is it 8 feet? Is it 12 feet? Is it 22 feet? The fear of going to a restaurant. The fear of a server. The fear of really existing in public. And then there's the fear of isolation on the other side of that. You see, there are so many ways in which you can fall into the concept of fear that it's difficult to remember that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I invite you, when you find yourself in that situation or scenario, and maybe you're not doing it, maybe it's just at the table next to you or in public when you're with others or when you're on a phone call. See, I talk to and interact with a lot of people during the week, and it doesn't take long to get a read on where they are on their, what I've been referring to as their fear meter, because some people are so much in fear that they've just totally withdrawn. And see, that's a very constrictive, it's a contractive energy. And when you get into that contractive energy, it's hard for you to expand, and you miss the opportunities that are out there. There are all kinds of opportunities for you to excel in this environment. Whether it's in a relationship, you have the opportunity to spend more time together. For some relationships, that's a challenge. You see, there are ways to expand in your work environment. There are ways in which you can become healthier. You're at home, you have more control over the foods that you eat. You have more control over the liquids that you drink. You have more control over when you rest. You have more control over what you think and who you listen to. Some of the tenets of Jinn. You see, this is a time to take control in a faithful environment rather than being in fear of something out there. Let's work on what's in here, because when we enable what's in here, the power that made us, the power that created us, the power that allowed us to go from one cell to trillions of cells still exists. That power, when harnessed, when we can find out how we can make that energy grow rather than constrict, rather than being in isolation, rather than watching the rates of suicide go up and the rates of drug overdose go up and the rates that people are just in fear of, when we can calm down, when we can lower our shoulders, when we can pause in a conversation, when we can take time to think about a rational answer and not be emotionally charged in all of these areas of fear that are so present. The opportunities are there. Just think of it as a test. You're putting your Jinn training to a test. It's an exercise, if you will. It's a way in which you can fall back on your foundation, and this is the lesson of the Success Mastery course. Be in control. Be the person who has a calming effect. Be a person. This week I was reading some information from Deepak Chopra, and he was addressing the three major types of stress that are going on right now, and of course they're very obvious. One is, of course, the pandemic, the coronavirus. It's hard to get away from that conversation out there in the public. The second is an economic conversation, which is the economy, meaning not just global economy, not just your country, not your state, your job, your personal economy. How is this impacting you financially? And the third aspect of that is how you're addressing the personal stress. How are you dealing with this? And I invite you to remember there are only two kinds of stress in the world. There's the kind of stress you can do something about and the kind of stress you can't do anything about. So if you are dealing with a stress you can do something about, get out of your chair, get up, do something about the stress you can do something about. Take the steps that are necessary. Sure, it may be a 5-step process. Start with step number 1. And if it's the kind of stress you absolutely cannot do anything about, you decided, you picked the category that you put the stress in. If you decided it's something I cannot do anything about, then why in the world would you choose to stress about it? Why would you choose to secrete hormones inside this temple, this glorious body that we have? Why would you choose to invite a weakness, a decrease of your immune system? Why would you become more susceptible to the outside influences of others and germs and bacteria and those things? Because they're around you all the time. COVID will be around for a while. Let's just make the assumption that it came from one person in China and it spread to the entire world. How long do we have to stay in isolation and hide from this? You cannot run from this. There's only one way out of this, and it's herd immunity. How do we get to that? That's a story for another day. You cannot run. What happens when somebody develops COVID 2020? What happens when it's COVID 2021? Are we going to shut down the world again? Let's not be in fear of that. Let's do something. Let's take an active step today. Let's work on our immune system. Let's work on our vitamin intake. Let's work on our fruits and vegetables that we take in. Let's work on our thought process. Let's operate in faith instead of fear. Let's come from a position of growing and expanding and sharing that information with others and sharing that lifestyle with others. And so often people get into that fear and they get in that constriction. And what I'm asking you to do is to consider, rather than fear of I'm not enough, the real question is, how can I become more? The question is not, why am I not enough? The question is, how can I become more? What can I do? What action steps can I do? How can I make myself better today than I was yesterday? And if you just do that every day, you're on a path. You'll create a habit. And your end result will be health, happiness, and success, instead of the disease process and a premature death. The choice is yours. Do you choose to operate in fear or in faith? I invite you to consider your thought process. I invite you to consider the people you listen to. I invite you to consider the two ways to change are the information that you take in and the people you meet. What information are you listening to? Who are you listening to? What are you listening to? And who are you meeting? Who are you meeting as mentors? Who are you meeting through different mediums that we have today? There are lots of ways to meet people. There are lots of ways to learn from people. There are lots of ways to gather new information. There are lots of ways to assimilate that new information. There are lots of ways to make it a part of you so that you expand your energy ball. You expand your energy ball. And how do you change those lives? How do we get to a new life? How do we get to a new dream? How do we accomplish the dreams that we talk about in dream building? How do we accomplish those goals and those aspirations? How do we do that? Well, I think you do that by being a member of GEN. If you're in GEN, congratulations, regardless of what level you're at. If you're at level 1, I look forward to you being at level 2, and you will grow and you will have new cognitions. And if you're at level 2, I'm so excited about you becoming level 3. And if you're at level 3, just wait for level 4. And if you're at level 5, you know what I'm talking about because you got to level 5 and you passed a test. And we know that you know the information because that's the only way to get there is to pass that test. And if you've been to level 6, you are at a completely the next level of understanding. And once you've paired off with a twin and created a friend and a companion for life there, and you've shared a bond, and then moving into level 7 where you understand the path that you're on and which path you choose and how to balance that path between materialistic things and spiritual things, and really those two concepts apply to every aspect of your life. This is the beauty of Jen, and I so look forward to, as Dr. Ted and Blaine, to watching the growth that will happen inside this, the explosive growth that will happen inside this club when level 8 is released. And so I encourage you, I invite you, I recommend to you that you do everything you can to move along that path so that you move away from fear and into faith, and you move away from the things in life that are the holes or the leaks or the areas of your life that you know consciously could be better, yet you didn't have a vehicle or a mechanism or a mentor or an uncle or a way in which you could get there. You have that way. It's right in front of you. And if you're not yet a member of Jen and you're watching this, join us. Join us. Come into this club. Come see what it's about. Come feel what it's about. Come touch it. You will understand. I would say taste it, but many of you have already tasted Jen. So the way in which we move forward is together, and it's that collective energy. And I was reminded today as I came across a quote from someone that I would consider extremely successful in the business world. And his analogy was quite simply, should you find yourself in a chronically leaking boat? Now think about this. Let's just take a moment here as we wrap up for today. If you find yourself in a chronically leaking boat, now you can make that analogy to any aspect of your life. If you find yourself in a chronically leaking boat, energy devoted to changing vessels is likely to be more productive than energy devoted to patching leaks. Energy devoted to changing vessels is likely to be more productive than energy devoted to patching the leaks. Those of you that are in Jen, you changed vessels. You took a new path. You got a new vehicle. You got a new way. You addressed where your leaks are, because we all have leaks in life. Whether it's a financial leak or whether it's a physical leak in a boat, whether it's a leak in a relationship, whether it's a leak in spirituality where you know, there's this knowingness, there's this feeling, there's this driving force, there's this innate intelligence that says, I should be doing this. Have you stopped and listened? Have you taken the time to just say, let's stop the chatter. Let's be in the pause. Let's be in the moment and listen to what the universe is telling you. And of course, this quote came from Warren Buffett. If it was a strategy that worked for him, I think it's a strategy that can work for all of us, because that strategy will apply to every aspect of your life. And it's a strategy that's talked about throughout the Success Mastery course. It's a strategy that's talked about each and every week when we deliver the additional informations, the new bonus informations, if you will, in the Terrific Tuesdays and the Wellness Wednesdays and the Financial Fridays and the Member Development Series and all of the things that we're doing in the virtual chapter meetings and the regional meetings that we have and the majors that we have. This is how it works, and this is how it ties together, and we're so thankful that you're a part of it. I'm Dr. Tom. I hope you have a spectacular week.